Motorcycle racing on ESPN. We'll guarantee you some of the fastest action you've ever seen. I'm Art Eckman, and today we hit the halfway point of the Grand Prix circuit when the riders take to the 3.6-mile track in Assen, Holland. And joining me with the action, ESPN's expert of the two-wheelers, Dave Despain. Dave, last week in Germany, we saw an Australian, Daryl Beatty, break up the dominance of the two Americans. I'm speaking of Kevin Schwantz and Wayne Rainey. What do you expect to see this time around?
I don't expect to see Daryl Beatty do that again, and here's why. It's his first time at most of the tracks on the circuit. This racetrack eats first-timers alive. It's much different from Germany, which was all about horsepower and straightaways. This place is 3.6 miles of corners stacked on top of turns, on top of twists and bends. You get one wrong, you've got them all wrong. I don't think I've ever seen a guy do well here his first time out. It just takes too long to learn the circuit.
Oh, Beatty seeing that track for the first time, won his first Grand Prix in Germany, but one of the highlights started early, back in qualifying.
Yeah, indeed. The Hondas showed how strong they were early on. Shinichi Ito ran 200 miles an hour on the straightaway and then turned in pole position and demonstrated that the Hondas would be hard to beat.
Alex Crivier led early, but one bobble, and he really took his thread away.
If you had a bobble like this, Art, would you not surrender to good sense and slow down a little bit? He about pitched it, but managed to continue.
Points leader Kevin Schwantz had a good top speed coming into the race. There's no doubt about that, but he found what Honda power was all about in Hockenheim.
He could run pretty close to the same speed as the Hondas. Ultimately, they could draft him at the end of the straightaways, as we see here. And in the end, that affected the outcome. The final strategy was determined by the Honda's power.
And as we check out the world champion, Wayne Rainey, he had his problems.
Yeah, he simply couldn't keep up with either the Suzuki or the Honda and ended up struggling trying to hang on for fifth.
The race saw several different leaders during this time, but also the attrition was very high. There was that long, full throttle tight curves that are very wearing on the bikes.
Yeah, especially on the tires, as we'll see in a moment, but also I think on the concentration of the riders. When you run that long, that close to the edge, you have consequences. You see a couple of them here, and unfortunately, that's part of the high price of speed.
For a while, it looked like Doohan would get his first win of the season, his first win since last time coming to the track here. 3 laps to go, tire problems for Doohan.
An incredible disappointment for Mick. I think he really is back 100% now from his broken leg and was in position to win this race, and the tire let him down.
Highlighting the fact that drafting is almost as important as horsepower on this track when it came right down to the end.
Watch the long run down the last straightaway. 34 Schwantz wants to draft number 4 Beatty. Instead, Ito uses the horsepower to draft Schwantz. Now Kevin has to get real brave on the brakes just to salvage second place.
Beatty wins his first Grand Prix by less than 1/10 of a second over Schwantz.
And yet, as you watch Schwantz celebrate, you'd think he had beaten Beatty by 10 seconds. The reality, of course, is that he's concerned about Wayne Rainey, and he scored a lot more points than Wayne did on Sunday.
Adding 9 more points, Schwantz now leads by 14 points after that race.
German Grand Prix, I think, Dave, was a good example of Schwantz racing more with his head than his heart.
You mean he hasn't crashed yet? In Kevin's defense, the reason that his big bugaboo throughout his career has been the fall down is very simple. He's ridden motorcycles that weren't as quick as those of his competitors, and he's tried to make up the difference with his own determination and drive, and it's put him on the ground a few times. The difference this year, he has a very, very good motorcycle. He is a great racer, and the combination have given him a huge point lead.
Crivelet is the defending champion now as we look toward Holland, and Doohan's looking good. He might be ready for a win. What about your predictions?
Well, Crivelet is the defending champion here because Kevin Schwantz and Eddie Lawson took each other out last year while racing for the lead. Predictions, I don't look for any surprises here. I think it'll be the big 3, Mick Doohan, Kevin Schwantz, and Wayne Rainey in a tight race all afternoon long. I wouldn't begin to pick among the 3, and I don't think anybody else has a shot because those are the guys with the experience that you need to ride this racetrack.
All right, when we come back, we'll take a look at the track and have the 125 and 250cc appetizers. Stay tuned for World Grand Prix motorcycle racing right here on ESPN.
The good news is they fixed the bike, and he came back and won the pole by almost half a second. Unbelievable.
Taking that pole position away from Waldman. Casanova qualified 9th despite all of this. But the unfortunate Grassini launched off the Aprilia's tank. He only made 23rd place. Disappointing.
You can't win qualifying on the first lap. It makes no sense to make that kind of mistake on cold tires. Fortunately, the guys are okay. But boy, I'll tell you what, Casanova's motorcycle took a beating.
Tsujimura was 3rd in the qualifying with Gianola in the 4th spot.
Big news here, I think, is probably the fact that Sakata, the point leader, the other Japanese rider, is stuck back in row 2. So it's a great opportunity for Dirk Rowdies here to try to gain on Sakata and cut his point lead.
Green flag goes out, and it's Rowdies immediately taking from the pole position.
Great start. You get this little 125 wound up early and get out in front. It's a huge advantage because watch what happens right here. Out of the middle of the pack, all of a sudden it's 5 guys in a pile.
5 guys down, but it doesn't look like any of them are seriously injured. Back to the leaders. Sakata's getting an unbelievable start. There's a reason why he has 4 seconds and 1 first already on the docket. He's out in lead, and that's Tsujimura giving the challenge early. Number 36, Tsujimura. He takes the inside track.
17-year-old kid got this place figured out. Take another look. Middle of the pack, inside of the racetrack. A couple of the 125 guys tangle. I don't know who this is, but as he heads for the outside of the racetrack, he gets run over. Stack up the Yamahas like cordwood. Fortunately, nobody injured.
Next in our 125 highlights, that's Bauman and Sakata, and watch what happens. He forces Sakata onto the infield area.
Sakata showing his inexperience. He just wasn't paying attention. There was no reason for him to try to outbreak Bauman. Bauman was on the outside. He had him covered anyway. Drops the point leader to 19th place as number 36, Tsujimura, goes back to the lead.
And disappointing for Baldwin because it put him out of the race for some reason or other. Here's the replay of it.
See, they're on the out. Bauman's on the outside of him. Why is he trying to outbreak him? He's already got the corner. It was just a big mistake for Sakata, and as all these guys come streaming by, he's got his work cut out for him. As you'll see, he was up to the job, though.
Well, even though he's got a small budget, back out on top as we skip ahead, it's Dirk Rowdies from Germany.
Rowdies ultimately dominates this race completely. Problems here for Waldman, who ultimately dropped out of the race. In fact, a lot of people dropped out. This is Giro with a mechanical problem, and attrition was really the big story of the 125 classes. Rowdies just took off. Never did figure out who this guy is.
David looked like Giovanni Palmieri went for the tumble on the grass, though, and got up okay.
Well, you would know that. I didn't know that. Look at Rowdies. He's gone. He's out of there. Checked out.
But look at the pack for second place as we've got 2, 4, 5 bikes in that second pack.
And coming up through that pack is Sakata, number 8. He had the off-track excursion early. What an unbelievable performance as he runs them all back down, and will get up there and battle with Tsujimura.
Ueda, who's had a couple of 5th place finishes and a 4th place finish, goes down, and that just simply makes the situation better for Sakata.
Boy, he's hot. Crashing in the heat of battle like that's very frustrating. He was in the midst of a great race, crashed away the chance to finish second, and left the 2 teammates, Sakata and Tsujimura, to battle for that spot. Sakata gets it. What a charge.
Number 8, after 3 straight runner-up performances, got his first win from start to finish in Spain. His teammate Tsujimura goes for a ride to the gravel pit.
That gravel's actually a safety device. Falling into a gravel pit doesn't seem like fun, but it'll slow you down, absorb a lot of energy, keep you from smacking the fence quite as hard.
Here's Dirk Rowdies, and he needs this win. After the crash in Spain, he's got his fist in the air, his second GP in succession. Another dominant ride for Dirk Rowdies. They're going to call him Runaway Rowdies, except for that crash in Spain. Sakata next, a good ride by Bauman, Steve, Spahn, and Odell. Odell and Aprilia behind all those Hondas. But here's how the point race is shaping up. It's a great one at 125.
Now, Sakata really did what he had to do to hang on to the point lead. After he got off the road, came back, still leads Rowdies by 4 points.
Welcome back to World Grand Prix Motorcycle Racing on ESPN. I'm Art Ekman along with Dave Despain. And Dave, it was a tough week of qualifying. There's no question about that, with Australian Mick Doohan recapturing some of his pre-injury type form.
Yeah, we said before, I think he's ready to win a race. And there were 2 big stories really in qualifying. One was Doohan, and the other, the problems for Wayne Rainey.
Qualifying at Assen was another disappointment for Wayne Rainey. The emphasis here, of course, not on sheer speed, but technique and twisty turns, Dave.
One would have expected Wayne and the Yamaha to do better here. He qualified in the middle of the second row. Didn't make any bones about the fact he was very disappointed.
You know, I can only do so much, and the guys can only do so much, and Yamaha can only do so much. And if all 3 don't gel, it's a hard combination to win when it's gelled in the past. So we've got some problems that need to be fixed, and you know, we just got to keep working. That's all there is to it. It just takes work to win a world championship.
Well, on the inside of the second row, 0.3 of a second faster than Rainey was Doug Chandler on the Cagiva, doing well and performing just as expected.
Yeah, that bike really works well on this racetrack. Cagiva made terrific progress. Beatty has also got to be thrilled. He's outside row 1, the first time he's ever been here. And it again speaks to the fact that this young Australian learns racetrack very, very quickly. Most of these GPs are his first appearance at the various circuits, and he's a fast study.
And just coming off his first victory in the German Grand Prix. Now directly in front of this young man, Daryl Beatty, is Alex Barros. And this is one of Barros's favorite tracks. He's looking good now that the tracks are tightening up a bit.
Well, the Suzuki folks are really enthused about this guy. He's impressive to watch. Number 9, when he keeps the motorcycle upright, he is absolutely spectacular. He has a bit of a problem keeping the motorcycle upright. Crashes a bunch.
He's just 1/100 of a second behind his illustrious teammate, and then missing the pole for the second time in 7 races, and perhaps more significantly the second time in 2 races, Kevin Schwantz. Just 0.02 of a second adrift of the top spot.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's a big disappointment for Schwantz. I mean, certainly he'd like to have been up front, but he treats it as no big deal.
It seemed like every time I got a good lap going, I managed to find somebody, come across somebody somewhere, and you know, we just never did get that good, clean, flying lap in that we needed to get pole position. But you know, I'm happy enough with second. It's got us a good starting position on the front row, and we'll try and make the most of it.
It's almost a year since Mick Doohan broke his leg at Assen, and he's not been really fit since then. Second place in Austria announced a comeback. His speed at Hockenheim underlined it, but Assen really had to be a psychological barrier. He was delighted with his performance and being on the pole.
And surprised, I think.
It surprised me to be fastest, but we spent a lot of time basically in the pits and just trying to put together a lot of laps with a lot of different setups, and the bike feels pretty good, and it just seems to have come together. But you know, I didn't want to come here and ride a bike but didn't feel good, so we've spent a lot of time getting the bike working fairly good, and it seems quite good.
And Dave, here in Holland was finally the place that Honda took the wraps off and admitted what they were looking at.
Yeah, fuel injection on the motorcycle. Everybody knows they've been running it all year, although the team deny they ran it in Germany, which was a surprise.
I can honestly say that when Ito did run at 321 in the back straight at Hockenheim, he was on the carburetor. He was using carburetors, not the injector system.
I thought the hand over the heart was a nice touch. Cross my heart, hope to die. I'm telling you the truth.
And Rainey really has never had anything to hide. He's been looking for the answers all season long, while Kevin Schwantz, well, he's got a defense system of his own there, I guess.
Secret weapon.
Right there on the pole, though, the happy smile of Michael Doohan, his first pole of 1993. Right next to Doohan is Kevin Schwantz, Alex Barros, and Daryl Beatty on that front row. In the second row, Doug Chandler ahead of Wayne Rainey. Shinichi Ito with the fuel-injected NSR, and then Alex Crivellet. The third row, Catalora right behind his teammate Rainey, Mladen on the Cagiva, and McKenzie, the leading privateer. On board with Daryl Beatty as the green light shows. Kevin Schwantz, watch for him to come into the action and gain the lead right there.
Great start for Schwantz. Didn't get the pole, didn't need the pole. He said, I got a good spot in the middle of the front row. I'm going straight to the front, looking for his third win here in 4 years.
Crivellet in third, but Doohan pressing him big time, already has made the move and has passed him in this shot. Number 2 is Doohan.
Beatty, meanwhile, second spot just ahead of him. Here's their teammate Ito on the fuel-injected bike further back in the pack.
Gaps are already starting to form on this one-line circuit day.
Yeah, it's a tough place to pass, and it's very important to get your spot early. See how they single file it around the apex? There's really not a lot of room here, because if you get wide, it's going to throw you off for the next corner, and it tends to sequence that way. You're out of shape for a long time.
The points leader, Kevin Schwantz, out in front as we ride with Daryl Beatty, and he's taking a high. Whoa, nice move on the inside by Mick Doohan.
Well, that was a gift. You saw Doohan come up the inside because Beatty was way wide. I don't know if he had a notion to try to pass Schwantz there. He left the door open. Doohan says thank you very much, and Doohan looks like he wants a piece of the leader.
Well, Doohan is looking great, overcoming the fitness problems he had with that crash at Assen. He's close to full form. There's no question about it right now.
I wonder about the psychological hurdle for the second-place man Doohan. This is where he crashed. He broke his leg badly, but the doctors really made a mess of it. He got infection, had all sorts of complications, primarily as a result of the surgery. I wonder what it's like in his head to come back here to the track that hurt him so badly.
Well, a lesser man just couldn't handle that type of situation, and the rehabilitation he had to come through to get to this point as we look from the third-place bike to the teammate of Mick Doohan.
Beatty's smart. He will follow these guys and learn their tricks on the circuit. He qualified well outside row 1, but qualifying and racing are two different things. And if he's going to beat these guys, he's got some lessons to learn.
Darrell Beatty trying to close up on these front guys right now. Mick Doohan right in front of him.
See how they single filed up through the stadium section here? And you have to be impressed with the crowds. Everywhere you look are people. They get 130,000 living, breathing Dutchmen here for this thing.
Here we watch from Darrell Beatty's bike as he closes in on Doohan, and he hit a big bump, and look out, he put on the brakes, and he's in the gravel pit. The track workers right now looking back, and that's Matt Mladen.
Mladen apparently got tangled up with guys trying to avoid the Beatty crash. A two-man tangle on the second lap, a two-man race up front as Schwans and Doohan will now get away.
Might add that Beatty didn't look like he was hurt, but Mladen was holding on to his shoulder as we look at the leaders.
I want to get another look at that and see what happened here. That will move Rainey up to third. Here is Beatty very disappointed walking away. Watch bike number 4. He lays it in. He's hot. See the front end wiggle? He hit a bump under braking, and that just took the front end out from under the motorcycle. Then it's a skid through the gravel patch. You know everybody behind him's in a scramble to try to avoid him, and Matt Mladen apparently got tangled up in that. We don't see how this started, but you can see the corner worker saying, I wonder where I ought to go to avoid that Kajiva.
The leather's looking a little worse for wear, even though it was only the second lap as we look at the two involved. Mladen holding onto that shoulder, implying a collarbone.
He's got that Napoleon pose, typical of motorcycle crashes. If we check the speed here at Assen.
Basically a three-man race out in front. Welcome back to the Holland Grand Prix as Kevin Swans's pit crew putting out the +0, because while we're away, it's Mick Doohan out in front of Swans number 34.
And Schwantz under a lot of pressure from the number 9, Alex Barros, his teammate. The two Suzukis run nose to tail, but they're chasing Doohan, who obviously wants revenge on this racetrack.
We've got Doohan first, Swans second, Barros, Cribillé, Rainey is 5th, with Chandler in 6th.
Rainey not able to maintain the pace of the lead trio. He's got his own race going back there. And again, the important thing for Wayne is simply collecting points and doing the best he can. Barros keeping good pressure on Schwans here. He loves this racetrack, and he thinks he's overdue for his first GP win.
And he led the race last year after Swans and Lawson came together in that celebrated mix-up.
Celebrated indeed. One of the more controversial crashes in recent GP history. Schwantz says Lawson took him out. Lawson said Kevin closed the door on him. The two went down together, and it looked for a moment like Barros might win the race.
We see the top 3 and quite a gap until the second 3 with Cribillé and Rainey and Chandler.
Rainey's the man on the move in that group. He goes side by side there with Cribillé, but seems to have him covered. Wayne doesn't want to let the leaders get away, but he's pretty much stuck in his own battle. We're on board with Chandler, looking first at Cribillé, and ahead of him, Wayne Rainey in 4th place.
This onboard camera with Chandler really shows us the twisting, winding track, Dave.
Watch how you have to flick it. Hard left and then back over to the right, coming into the next corner. Watch this sequence. You set it up, down to the inside, bang, hit the apex. Hold your line. It'll take you right out to the edge of the racetrack, back in, bang, apex. Little bit of a straightaway, something rare at Assen. You want to be out against the left-hand side of the road, back in, bang, apex.
Mick Doohan, along with Barros and Swans.
They call him the Bruise from Brazil, and this boy's putting the pressure on the number 2 Honda here. Schwantz, for the moment, seems content to sit back and let these two guys fight it out. I think his strategy makes a lot of sense. Let Barros go up and pressure Doohan. There's no need for Schwantz to do that. Let his teammate do the work. He's just a kid.
Yeah, the pressure on the machine as well as the mental pressure you have. Doohan here in Barros really pulling and pushing for the extra slipstream advantage.
Doohan's riding it really, really well. It's taken him all season to get his start style sorted out. He can't bend his ankle on the braking side the way he could before the injury. He's fiddled with a hand brake. He uses the rear brake to set the bike's line in the corner or to adjust the line in the corner. So he's finally figured out a way to work the rear brake with a little hand control, and it's working pretty well for him.
Now we see Schwantz not letting the two get too far away.
And he wants to stay in close touch, and I'm not sure about his strategy at this point. I think his big concern probably is that Doohan might give Barros the slip and that he won't be there to do anything about it, because Barros will race Schwantz just as hard as he'll race Doohan. That's one of the problems Kevin has.
And could be even more trouble as he gets experience. Here's Barros making a move now on Doohan, and he takes him. Oh, he's really on the gas through the left-hander.
Exit speed off the corner, the key for Barros. He got a better run through that little tiny short straightaway and enabled him to sneak to the inside of Doohan and take the spot. So now Schwantz has really got to make a decision. Do I go with him or do I sit back in third and see what happens?
Well, Barros making it look like a natural thing, especially when the wild gambles don't come about.
Barros is becoming a notorious crasher. He crashed in qualifying in Germany, crashed in the race, crashed the previous week, if memory serves, and crashed out of the Spanish GP while leading with 3 laps to go. He falls down way too much, and I got a feeling Kevin Schwantz looks at Alex Barros and says, that was me 2 or 3 years ago. I'm not going to get up there and mess with that guy.
Barros on top, Doohan and Schwantz next. We'll be back with more action. Welcome back to the Dutch Grand Prix. Is Alex Barros, who studied a couple of years with Eddie Lawson, taught him a great deal during that time, is still out in front of our race.
Lawson is a great teacher and Barros a great student. And as much as we criticize him for his crashes, I think that's a stage in his evolution. He's going to be a great GP racer if he doesn't get hurt. Look at Doohan keep the heat on him.
Doohan's making the challenge and testing him around this track right now as Schwantz comes up on Doohan.
Doohan's slow in that section of the racetrack. Kevin knew it, and when he saw Doohan make that little run at Barros, he negotiated his way over to the inside of the racetrack because he knew the opening was going to be there. He took it. He's second. Look out. Here come the Suzukis.
2 Suzukis leading. Barros leads it. Schwantz and then Doohan. Lucky Strike Pits have to have their fingers crossed right now.
We go on board again with Chandler back in 6th spot. The Rainey Crivellé battle continues. Rainey's having the best of it, but he really wants to be up there with that top 3. The bike's just not working, and I don't understand it because the bike worked great in Malaysia, which is a similar circuit. He started 8th. He passed everybody. He won the race. He comes here with the twists and turns, and the thing won't handle.
Here's the trio in front now. Kevin Schwantz has taken the lead.
Schwantz thinks maybe the safest place to be is ahead of Barros instead of behind, and he goes to the front, and I can't blame him for that strategy. Again, his problem is that Barros will race him, even though they're teammates. Barros will race him just as hard as he'll race Doohan. He wants his first victory. There are no team orders. Kevin is still very vulnerable at this point.
And still developing an interesting riding style. Used to look very nervous and awkward on the machine, Dave.
You know, you hear that a lot about Kevin, and I'm not sure I buy it. His legs are so long, he's got to compromise. I mean, he's got to put him someplace. See how his head sticks up over the bubble? It's just because he's too tall. That's not his fault that God made him 6'8" or something like that.
2-on-1 now with the 2 Suzukis right next to each other in close action.
What a great battle. Barros had the spot, made the pass. Kevin knew he was a little offline, held his line, and came right back underneath him. And by the way, I'm exaggerating. He's only about 6'2", 6'3".
Let's take a look at the tall Texan right here as he maneuvers, puts that leg out, but look at it's underneath the fairing.
See how he has to tuck the leg actually in between the road and the pavement. His leg is just so long he can't hang it out Kenny Roberts style. I don't think there's anything awkward about it. I think it's an excellent compromise that Schwantz has made to deal with his own physical stature. The thing that I notice about Kevin, and let's see if he does, see how he moves that foot around? He's always got one foot or the other off the peg, and that is a little unusual.
This threesome with 2 teammates together, Dave, kind of reminds me a little bit of Beatty and Ito in Germany, how they teamed up.
Yeah, Ito definitely put the hurt on Schwantz in the previous GP by drafting him when Schwantz wanted to be drafting the leader. Again, I don't think you're as likely to see that with Schwantz and Barros, simply because Barros is so focused on winning the race. I think he's going to try to be out front on the last lap. Again, we go back with the Cagiva, and it looks to me like that gap's growing. I think Chandler's losing touch a little bit here.
Well, this is the race for 4th, 5th, and 6th as they've gapped it out a little bit, but it doesn't look good for Rainey as far as the point situation is concerned.
Continuing to struggle. It's been the story of much of this season, although Rainey has won a couple of races. That's the inconsistency that's plaguing his effort to win a 4th straight championship.
Our helicopter shot giving us a good idea of the gaps as Barros and Schwantz. Barros taking Schwantz. Number 9 at Schwantz coming right back.
Second time we've seen it. Kevin is the ultimate late breaker. Barros made the move. Kevin says that'll never work. I'm right back by you.
It's tremendous up-front action in the Dutch Grand Prix.
Very impressive ride for Alex Barros, now in second spot. Second time this year we've seen him come through the pack, pass all of the good guys, and get all the way to the lead. Pretty soon we're going to have to start calling him one of the good guys.
The 2 Suzuki's out in front now as Mick Doohan in 3rd place. That's Kevin Schwantz. Barros is number 9.
See Doohan come up there and try to force the inside on the exit of the corner. It threw him offline, and look how far behind he is going down the straightaway. That's what we talked about before. You get one corner wrong here, you're wrong for a long time.
Doohan, the sentimental favorite, of course, as Barros goes out in front, and he is hungry for his first GP win. Chandler renewing his attack on the defending champion. Trying to make a move on Rainey. This would be for 6th place.
And meanwhile, Crivier shoots right by Rainey and takes over the 4th spot. Chandler had a notion, couldn't find a line.
Rainey moving back in front of Chandler.
Rainey's struggling here. I'm not sure what's going on. That motorcycle doesn't look to me like it's working 100%.
Back up front, the top 3. Barros, 9. Schwantz and Doohan.
Doohan now content to sit back there. He tried that move a lap ago going into the chicane. I get the feeling that he's trying to find a passing point because he has not been making a whole lot of moves, and the laps are starting to wind down. You got to find a place where you know you're better than the guy. You got to find a place where you can get around. He's trying the chicane. Schwantz is good right through here. This is where he passed Barros the last time.
Such a master of the braking process. Kevin Schwantz raising that front tire up.
He's showing off a little bit right there. He's just letting Barros know that when push comes to shove, I'm still the point leader.
And he's the leader of this race as you see the 2 Suzukis into the corner.
Barros won't back away from him. See, he's checking Doohan's position. This is starting to get down to the last few laps. You've got to know where you are. You got to know where you're strong, and you got to know where the other guy is weak, because it plays out like a chess game in the last couple of laps, especially when there are so few places to pass.
So you anticipate a move from Doohan as we see Rainey still struggling in the back of the pack from Chandler's bike. Rainey is right in front of him. Lots of wobble right there.
Yeah, and not the acceleration that he seems to have had before when he was up there battling Crivier. See, they hit the straightaway. Chandler just blitzes right by him. That's a full-on corner. That was not under the brakes. That was under acceleration, and Rainey doesn't seem to have very much of that.
Back out on top, Kevin Schwantz. We see him there with Barros. Schwantz riding very smooth. And Dave, Doohan's making his move now.
In exactly the corner where your expert analyst said just a lap ago that he was a little bit slow. You better watch those guys.
Now Doohan would love to reel in Kevin Schwantz as he bobbles on the corner.
Schwantz has really moved her out to the edge. The laps are winding down. If he can make a break right now, he would love to do it. And that may be why Doohan elected to go around Barros and take that chance there a moment ago. He doesn't want Kevin getting away from him.
I got to think, too, the Barros crew is saying, be satisfied with 3rd. Get on the podium. Don't do anything crazy right now.
And he is not hearing that, because all he's thinking about is beating those 2 guys and winning the race. You got a glimpse back to how far the interval is to this battle, which is now Chandler versus Crivier, and perhaps Chandler all by himself. He's moved around both guys, and now we're getting a report as we see empty racetrack in front of the now 4th place Chandler that there's a problem with Rainey's motorcycle, that he's apparently not getting fuel or something.
So we have Chandler, Crivier, and Rainey back in 6th spot. What a race going on. Rejoining the action, we zero in on Mick Doohan. And Mick is in second place, right behind Kevin Schwantz. But Barros is just not satisfied with third.
Doohan hates this racetrack, and it's not just because it hurt him last year. He hated it the first time he came here. He says there aren't any straightaways. Look at this move as Barros goes by Doohan, and that wasn't because Doohan hates the racetrack. He just left a little gap there, and Alex, very aggressive, charged right through that opening. But it puts Mick Doohan back in the position where he really doesn't want to be. You can't win the race from third. You can win the race from second. He's got to be second or better going into the last lap.
It's going to be exciting for the Lucky Strike crews back in the pits in the garage area, too, watching this on TV. You know, the competition between these two could be dangerous.
Well, listen, I tell you, they love to run up front. They're a little worried about Barros, and I suppose by habit, look at Schwantz lean off. They may be a little worried about Kevin because Kevin has crashed so many times at critical moments throughout his career. I suppose there must be this mentality that says, are we living a dream here, or has he really learned his lesson? I got to think of the two. They're more worried about Barros right now than Kevin. Kevin has been very mature this season.
Kevin Schwantz, Alex Barros pulling away just a little bit in the chicane area with Doohan in third.
Break them late, keep them at bay, don't give them a place to pass. That's the Schwantz philosophy. The Kevin Schwantz of old would have ridden the motorcycle to the absolute edge every lap of the race. That's one of the reasons the fans like him so much. It's also one of the reasons he's never won a world championship. You can't do that every lap, every race, and keep it on the wheels.
This has got to be the point of the race, too, where balancing of the bike continually changes with the tires wearing and the fuel consumption going down.
Especially the tires. I mean, that's the critical element. That's the key ingredient in Grand Prix success, is having tires that are good on the last lap. Look at this. Kevin a little slow on the exit.
Oh, Barros. He doesn't know the meaning of backing off either.
Time to charge. Time to get to the front. We're almost out of laps.
Can Alex Barros hold on with Kevin Schwantz, his teammate, real close, and Mick Doohan in third?
Will Kevin Schwantz gamble to try to win the race when his title rival, Wayne Rainey, has now slipped all the way to sixth? Apparently, Rainey's motorcycle is running out of fuel. He's had to back off of it. He was fourth. He's now sixth. More bad luck for the team.
Well, Schwantz might have thought about retaking the lead a few years ago, but right now, I think he might be content with the points in the situation he's in.
I think maybe he'd like to see Barros finally win one, hoping that he wouldn't be quite so crazy thereafter. Alex is very hungry for the first victory. I love that shot.
Yeah. Oh, Barros loses it. Oh, my goodness sakes. Barros once again while leading toward the end of the race.
Second time it's happened. Happened at Jerez. Happens again here. Barros is up and okay. Bike went tumbling. Fans go crazy. Alex Barros crashes away. A victory on the very last lap and retains his nickname, the Bruise from Brazil. Can Doohan do something with Schwantz? Could be interesting.
There's still time, right? Barros shaking his head more in mental disappointment as we take another look at this crash. He had recorded the fastest lap in this race, and that's a bruising, bumping, rolling action.
Still don't get to see how it started from that angle. It's a very, very fast corner of fifth gear right-hander through there. So when he came off, he was going fast. Here's Schwantz through the chicane. Could Doohan make it by?
Oh,
no.
So close.
That was his last chance, too, and Schwantz knew it. There's the wheelie. There's the victory for Kevin Schwantz. Unbelievable.
His third in 4 years at this track, and the trademark for the Texan, the American flag and victory.
Take another look from the helicopter. The lead rider loses the front end. Alex Barros got in there too fast, as you pointed out, on the hot lap, having just turned the quickest lap of the race. That's a fifth gear corner. I'm betting 135 miles an hour when he pitched it away.
A disastrous moment. The final results, Schwantz the winner again this year. Doohan, Crivellet, Chandler, Rainey, and Ito in sixth.
Rainey inherited a spot when Barros came off. That was good fortune for him after running out of fuel. And look at the point gap.
28 points ahead for Kevin Schwantz over Wayne Rainey. Good position to be in this time of the year.
Everybody else is out of sight. Nobody else has a chance at this point to win the championship. Schwantz celebrating again, and with good reason.
Well, it was one of the closest 500 races of the year, maybe one of the closest in any class this season.
There are lots of ways to win GPs. Kevin's found another one.
She was pretty close there at the end. I knew all along watching the qualifying times that Mick was consistently quick. I knew Barros was going to be hard to beat. And as it came out, I think Alex would have been hard to beat, and Mick was right there the whole time. So I tried the best I could. Got lucky we came out on top. We were in the right place at the right time and not any too close because, Barros could have probably taken us both had I been a little bit closer to him. But, that's all part of racing, and I'll take those 25 points.
Kevin Swantz now has a 28-point lead. He's won 4 times. He's been on the podium every race, Dave. What's it going to take to stop him now?
Boy, I tell you, Art, I've reached a point in the series where I believe if he keeps the rubber side down, Kevin can really go home with this thing. He's riding, as we've said, very wisely and very strategically, and if he continues to do that, and most importantly, avoids bad luck, I think he can take this thing home.
And what about Rainey, the 3-time world champion? What does he have to do?
Well, he's got to quit running out of gas, for one thing. I sense a certain desperation in the Yamaha camp. They know the bike is not as quick. They seem to be swinging for the fences, going with wild setups, just hoping desperately to come up with enough speed to beat Schwantz. They were strong early, and now they seem to have lost it. Looks tough. They're not putting much pressure on him now, are they?
No, they're not.